All right. Great morning, everyone. And thank you for joining. Great morning. And welcome to today's Topia Talk. I am so excited that we are here with the beautiful and amazing Dr. Erikka Taylor. Erikka, where are you joining us from this morning?
Well, thank you for having me today. It's such an honor to be here. And I am joining from Durham, North Carolina.
Beautiful. So we are both in Durham, North Carolina. I know that Erikka loves to get her travel on like me. so, so you are stateside at the moment.
Stateside at the moment. Now, last week would have been a little different, but yes, right now I'm here.
Where were you last week?
Oh my gosh. I started the week in Mexico in Cabo. I taught yoga at a retreat, the New You retreat. And then I finished the week in Turks and Caicos for my birthday.
That's what I'm talking about. You know how to reclaim your joy. So
Absolutely. Every day.
that's it. So today, today's Topia Talk is on a topic that I think we all need. We all need, right? And it's the power of resilience and cultivating joy in uncertain times. So as we get ready to dig in, I want to I'll just share that in the comments and on our little header or subheader here, which I love that we're able to show these deets. And so those that are joining us will know this is our topic for today. Those of you that are joining, this talk for the first time, let me just take a moment to introduce myself. Then we will also further introduce Dr. Taylor and get more about her background and dive into today's topic. So I'm the founder and CEO of Topia Wellbeing. We are a digital health and wellness platform, elevating workplace well-being, elevating employee health, happiness, and productivity. We know that we are not showing up as our best selves when we are completely stressed out, and there's a lot causing us stress right now. And we want to really be able to provide you all with tools, the essential tools for your self-care, for your well-being. And so Topia is a platform. It's a subscription model where employers and employees can join our platform and have unlimited access to over 800 wellness classes live and on demand. We have weekly classes that are live, and then we have a library that spans from mental wellness coaching to mindfulness to yoga, Tai Chi, Zumba, HIIT, and more. We are really pioneering the integrative health space so we can stay healthy and well and be preventative to really help combat some of the mental health challenges that we really suffer from extreme burnout. You all, as stress is a mental health challenge. So sometimes we get caught up in the language, but if it goes unchecked and if we don't have our self-care toolbox, then unfortunately we are more likely to fall into more serious matters that we're going to talk about today, depression, anxiety, and many other things. So we all need our self-care toolbox. In addition to our subscription platform, our on-demand library, our live classes, we also offer tailored workshops. And now, drum roll, we are offering curated kickoffs, offsites, and even global retreats for your corporate teams. We are now powered by Fora, so more will come around that, our announcement, which means that we have access to over 7,000 resorts and cruise lines globally, top tier, 5-star, and so more to come on that next week. And I also curate Utopia Global Wellness Retreats. So we have Bali coming up in July, only 3 spaces left. And we just newly are adding Ghana, and that will be happening in November, yes, of 2025. So this is the first time anybody's hearing that. So these links will be dropped below. But let's go ahead and dive into the topic. So thank you for joining us. Please share in the chat where you're joining from. And as we get into this topic, this is meant to be a talk and a conversation. Share your questions, share your thoughts, share your challenges and your struggles. Dr. Taylor, I'm so used to calling her Dr. Erikka. So Dr.
You can call me Dr. Erikka. Absolutely.
Dr. Erikka has worked with us, and she is, I just love how holistic you are, Dr. Erikka, and that you are a psychiatrist You also are a yoga instructor. So I feel like you are living what you teach as a doctor and model with your own holistic wellness habits and in the way in life choices. So I'd love to learn a little bit about first you. What kind of led you to
Yeah.
this area of medicine?
Oh, wow. That's such a good question. Well, interestingly, I originally wanted to be a pediatrician. I've always wanted to be a physician since I was 5. I've been saying that to my parents, and I continued with that as a child through high school and college. And I got to medical school. Well, I went to Spelman College for undergrad and then went to Duke for medical school. And when I did my rotation in pediatrics, I realized I more so resonated to the kids that had really complex medical histories that often had psychiatric undertones that were contributing to those physical and medical manifestations.
Mm,
And I found myself really enjoying spending more time with my patients and spending time with the parents and really understanding how their emotional well being and psychological well being would lead to some of their psychiatric symptoms and sometimes medical symptoms. So
mhm.
that really led me to think about psychiatry. And I took a year during medical school to just shadow some psychiatrists, child and adolescent psychiatrists. And it was really solidified at that time to really just pour my heart into helping children, adolescents, and adults heal from psychiatric conditions.
Wow, that is a blessing, because I know that questions that come to us sometimes at Topia is, can you recommend anybody to help my child? My child is going through challenging times, and I think with COVID, and we've just kind of had layers upon layers of things.
Yeah.
Not only are adults are we really challenged and struggling, but our children are too. And I feel like formative years. Kind of got missed with them not being able to go into the classroom and things of that nature, which has made this kind of taken their joy a little bit, and so we all need to figure out how to reclaim this thing, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that was something that was so important to me during the pandemic as well. My friend and I, one of my Spelman sisters, Dr. Jamita Barlow, and I were just talking about like how there was so much uncertainty, and here we are trying to help support people, and we don't really know what's happening as well. And one of the things that she and I committed to doing was creating and cultivating joy daily, and that's how we formed Joy Embodied, which we finally launched at the end of last year, which is also hosting retreats to really tap into our joy. And the first
Yeah,
one was in Costa Rica, but part of
yeah,
that started during the pandemic because it was like there's no ending in sight and we can't control what's going to happen in the future, but what we can do is work on our present and control our now, and we can decide whether or not we want to live with joy and if we want to embody that daily.
yes, I love that, joy embodied, and that is something that we can choose. We can choose what we let in. We can choose to even tailor how much news that we take in during the day. We can choose how we start our day with journaling and affirmations. We
Yeah.
can choose to elevate our joy with music and being with loved ones, all of those things. And so as we talk about today's topic around resilience and joy and all of those things, I want to um, go ahead and dive in. And I would
Yeah.
love for you, Dr. Erica, if you could define what is resilience and explain its significance in today's world where we are seeing sometimes thousands of people have lost their jobs
Yeah.
today. I just got an inbox yesterday from a former intern that I was so excited to see her springboard from her internship with Topia into a corporate career HR role, and got an inbox from her saying that unfortunately she has been affected by the cuts and she no longer has a job, and how can I support and assist her? And I'm still trying to think about who I can connect her with, but it's
Yeah.
hitting home and it's hitting closer. And some of you are watching this today and it's your story. You have received that email, and so it's all the things on top of all the things. And so, yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
what does resilience mean?
What does resilience mean? It's such a good question. And oh my gosh, my heart is so heavy because I know so many people right now are experiencing a lot of uncertainty, a lot of adversity. And what is resilience? It's our ability, our innate ability to not only survive, but to thrive, to adapt
Mm,
in the midst of adversity, in the midst of trauma, in the midst of uncertainties, setbacks, or threats. And when I think about resiliency, the first thing that comes to mind, and you mentioned you're hosting a retreat in Ghana coming up, and I was just in Ghana in December of this past year. And when you go to Ghana, part of what you'll do when you go is you'll visit the slave dungeons. These are quote unquote castles where they would hold slaves in captivity. They were captured slaves from their villages, hold them in captivity in these dungeons where the worst things would happen, rape and starvation and just a lot of torture would occur in these dungeons before they even got on the ships to be shipped over to the United States and the Caribbean and to Brazil. So these were a set of um, just trauma and adversity that happened before everything happened on the slave ship. And when
mhm.
you go through these dungeons, for me, it was an emotional experience because I was angry and I thought I could literally feel the souls of my ancestors. I felt I was mourning for them and grieving for them. And then eventually you get to the point where you see the door of no return, which they actually have labeled the door of return, so that
Mm,
people like me and you, African Americans, and other people from the diaspora can come back to this door as doctors, as CEO boss ladies, right? As lawyers, accountants, you name it, creatives, presidents, and
yes,
come back
yes,
through that door, through the door of return to see, okay, if our ancestors could go from being captured in their villages to then being held in these dungeons to the slave ship, surviving all of that, surviving slavery, surviving Jim Crow, and all of the systemic oppression that
right,
our people have faced. If
right,
we can do that, still come back and say, and still we rise, that
yes,
is resilience. So
yes,
resilience is in our DNA. If
yes,
you are a person of color, if you are a person of African descent, if you have experienced any kind of torture, your historical context, you think about Native Americans and what they've been through, so many of us have so many shared similarities and stories, then we can actually say without a doubt that that resilience is in our DNA. And
yes,
that, to me, the definition of resilience,
yes.
being able to overcome, survive, and thrive despite any adversity or trauma or threat that comes our way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that resonates with me so much because while we have Ghana approaching in November in 2020, 3 or 2022. These years are flying. Gosh. In
Yeah.
2022, we hosted a retreat to Senegal and the Gambia. And then we also went to Gorée and we had that
Mhm.
experience, which is also Senegal was one of the second largest
Right.
slave port, and being able to stand in that space of Gorée Island and stand in that doorway of no return. And it really did punctuate just how strong we are. And I know that that strength resonates, like you said, for anybody that has survived any sort of hardship or torture or really challenging circumstance. And so,
Yeah.
that spans the gamut
Yeah.
and that spans all people, right? And I think that's a noted highlight as this is Black History Month to even look at the resiliency of Black people and people of
Okay.
color. And really of all people, we've all experienced different challenges and different setbacks. And so that
Yeah.
resilience is that ability to thrive. And I think sometimes even reminding ourselves, even
Yeah.
taking that inventory,
Mhm.
as you all are being a part of this session, I encourage you to get your journals, grab them, because there are going to be some things that are going to spark really those aha moments. And I want you to capture them. And I even invite you to write down the things that you have overcome. I
Yeah.
really invite you to think the things that you have navigated through that seems so challenging. You didn't know how you were going to make it through, but here you are today on the other side. And so sometimes we have to remind ourselves, and this is where the mindset shift comes in from we are resilient, we are thriving, we are overcomers, and we are capable of
Absolutely.
great things.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that is a true, what I call the Sankofa moment, which was actually confirmed when I was in church this week. But when I was in Ghana, one of my favorite Adinkra symbols is the Sankofa symbol. And it's a bird looking back and retrieving an egg. And what it reminds us of is we have to look back at our past. And just as you said, look back at all the things that you individually have overcome, right? The things that your family has been able to overcome. And then you think about, okay, that is what actually helps me to have hope about my future, because I know I have this internal strength. I know I have this resilience. I know I have a community of people supporting me. I know I have the resources. I may not be able to get them all right now, but I know I have access to resources and people that can help me overcome. Because if I did this before, if my people have done this before, if my ancestors have done this before, then that means, again, it's in my DNA. So I can now retrieve what that has been restored, and that helps me to move forward. Right? That is what gives us hope at the end of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Erica, as we started the conversation and we were thinking about and talking about the impact of um, the season that we're in and how challenging it is for folks, can you share with us a little bit around the impact of stress on our brain health? I think sometimes we don't understand that stress really affects our brain and in our whole body, right? 80
Our
to
whole
90 death and disease is caused by stress, but it literally hijacks our brain. So unpack that for us a little bit and elaborate on the stress effects as it relates to cognitive function and emotional well-being.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, stress impacts every single organ. And when we think about what happens, our body has a way of adjusting to and adapting to any kind of stressor. And what it does is it helps to raise cortisol levels, which help to prepare us in some ways for emergencies or urgencies. It's protective in a way. But when those levels are constantly heightened and constantly, going through and pumping through your system and through your body, that can lead to significant impacts on every single organ in your body, from your brain to your heart to your skin, right? And part of that is your nails and your hair. Hair will start to fall out.
Mhm.
It can impact your ability to fight off infection. So immunity is impacted. It can lead to autoimmune diseases. And if we get back to the brain and we realize all of these things are interconnected, right? And that's kind of what I alluded to at the very beginning. Part of what attracted me to psychiatry is the brain isn't impacted in isolation. All of it works together with other organs within our bodies, right? So that impacts how we think, how we feel. It can lead to, chronic stress can lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety, constant worries about what will happen next, especially in times of uncertainty. Anxiety loves to latch on to that, right? So it can lead to physical symptoms of and manifestations of anxiety. So panic attacks, chest pain. That was something I even didn't realize for myself when I was going through a very stressful time in my life a few years ago. I thought I was having a heart attack.
Wow.
And
Wow. Tell us more about that so people
oh,
understand what
yes.
those symptoms are like.
Yes, yes. So I was going through a very, very difficult time in my life. And I, like many other women, just decided, okay, we are going to compartmentalize all of that, right? We are going through tough times, but we have to show up for our patients. We have to show up for our loved ones. We are caretakers. We are about our businesses. So I was doing, and completely ignoring what was actually happening to my body.
Wow.
And I'm a whole psychiatrist. But
I
what
love the
I
vulnerability.
what I could tell you is that I was having chest pain, I was having heart palpitations. I would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night with heart palpitations, and I couldn't figure out what was happening or going wrong. Sometimes I would even break out in a complete sweat. I noticed that my hair was more brittle, it was thinner. I just didn't feel like myself. And
Right.
fortunately, I have a friend from medical school who's a cardiologist. And I said, you know what? I need to get this checked out. So I went to the cardiologist. I actually had some EKG findings um,
Wow.
from my heart. But when we did a thorough assessment, a thorough evaluation of my cardiac functioning, at the end of the day, we realized you are dealing with anxiety. I was dealing with anxiety. And again, I am a whole psychiatrist. I have gone to school for over, I'm going to say how many years because I don't want to age myself right now, but let's just say a long time.
Well, you look gorgeous. So you might want to brag.
But I treat folks, I mean, this is my jam. I treat anxiety disorders every single day. And I didn't realize these physical manifestations were actually a manifestation of anxiety.
Mm,
And that's how stress shows up. And especially if we don't pause, take the time to be self aware, to even get a sense of what's happening in our bodies, right? What am I feeling? What
right.
sensations am I experiencing in my body? Am I feeling fatigued? That was another one. I was very fatigued. So there are lots of different ways that stress can show up in your body. And sometimes it may lead to psychiatric manifestations, not
Mm,
wanting to be around people, not feeling on top of it, cognitively. I
mhm,
was forgetting things. I was really behind in my charting and my billing.
mm,
I was also blaming myself, right? Then there's
mm.
the negative self-talk. Like, you should be able to do this. You're a physician. You
Yeah.
are XYZ. You own this business. You have to show up. You have to keep going. But
Mm,
eventually, if we don't listen, our bodies will tell us to have all the seats.
mhm.
And what we have to do is be mindful and not allow it to get to that point. We've all been on a plane, right? Where the flight attendant says, okay, when there's an emergency, we want to make sure we put on oxygen for ourselves before putting on oxygen next to our loved ones or anyone who's, sitting beside us, even if it's our own child.
Right.
But we have to think about that. Why are
Yeah.
we waiting until an emergency to
Right.
use oxygen?
That's it.
Right?
Right.
We have to do that, and part of that is the continued reflection, self-awareness to figure out, "Okay, what is stressing me out right now?" What
Mm,
are those stressors? How is
mm.
it manifesting? What do I need? What resources do I need? Not only in self-care, but seeking care, right?
Absolutely.
Eventually I had to be vulnerable to share with someone, and then I was able to get an accurate diagnosis, and then was able to get the appropriate treatment to
Mm,
help with my anxiety. But
absolutely.
part of that was I had, it kind of sat me down. So we
Right.
just have to do a better job of listening to our bodies. Our bodies will tell us.
Absolutely. And that's why I love the practice of even journaling because it allows us to unload and unpack and capture.
Absolutely.
And it's free and it
Yeah.
takes a few minutes. Whether it's morning, I'm a morning person, I'm a morning girl, so I
Me
am
too.
fresh, ready to go, and I like to set the tone for my day by journaling
Right.
with prayer and meditation, by listening to
Yeah.
some music that's going to inspire my spirit while I'm getting dressed, not
Yes.
turning on the news. At least the first 20 minutes for me, I take longer because I
Mhm.
am flooding my mind, my eyes, my ears, and my spirit with everything that is going to help me to navigate this challenging day. And even
Absolutely.
with that practice, it still can be challenging and it still can be
Absolutely.
tough. And I can still find myself needing a reboot in the middle of the day. And one of
Right.
my girlfriends, like we joke because she's like, I learned the art of bubble baths from you. So she was just
Ooh.
every day. And that's for me, my hydrotherapy, like coming
Yes.
from, the luxury spa world and learning around, all the types of therapy. Hydrotherapy is a form. So you don't have to always go to a hot tub and a sauna tub. Make your own sauna tub. Get your Epsom salt, your
Make your
essential oils.
own.
Do the things, like you said, to really inspire and spark your joy, to really protect your nervous system, to really be able to keep yourself in a place of peace. And that's our
Mhm.
powers and our peace. And so we really need to have our toolkit. And I think when we are going back to the journaling, it allows us to be reminded of what we're grateful for, but also even what kind of triggered us today, what made us feel stressed, what made us feel a little bit of anxiety. And so I'll come back to this because I do use my journals every day, lots of writing. We even have a mood for today. So you can even do a little check in for yourself. Was this a joyful day? Was this an day? Or was this like a really sad and depressing day? These are the things that help us to increase our emotional intelligence, right? So we're kind of getting in a groove because a lot of times if you're not cultivating these practices of mindfully moving through your day, mindfully living, and I want to just break that down. That's really being self-aware. That's
Yes.
really being in tune with what's happening around you, what's happening in you, what may be happening to you. We'll realize that when I got off that call, I just felt so drained. When I watch certain things for so long, now I can feel it in my body when the news has been on too long. I can
Yeah.
because I'm aware. You can
Right.
feel it too, but are we aware of how external factors are affecting our joy, our peace, and all of that weighs on our resilience. So, really being resilient and being able to combat all of the things that are happening in the world requires intentionality. It requires
Absolutely.
effective effort.
Absolutely. I love all of that. And then, as you were talking, it just reminded me of like, yes, mindfulness practices are so grounding,
Yeah.
right? And when you think about when a tornado hits, what is the first thing that you're being told? It's to ground yourself, right? And when there's all of this uncertainty happening around us, all of these anxiety provoking stories, we're getting, little bits and pieces of news all throughout the day. We're tied to our phones, social media, because we're waiting for the ball to drop. What's the next thing that's going to happen? Well, we have to learn how to ground ourselves. And in grounding ourselves, that helps us to be connected with ourselves, just as you mentioned, to, okay, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I experiencing? What do I need? How do I do that needs assessment? And then it helps you to continue to go throughout your day in a mindful way. So I love that. And that's really one of the realms of when we think about resiliency. There are 4 realms of resiliency that I like to think about. And one is the psychological realm, right? So what are we doing to not only bring joy, but also a sense of peace? What are we doing? What kinds of things are we allowing into our minds? If we're doom scrolling right before we go to bed, well, guess what? That's going to impact your sleep.
Did
That's
you
going
say
to
doom? Did you say doom scrolling?
doom scrolling.
Wow, I've never heard that term.
Yes, yes. So that's when you're on your internet or you're on your, Instagram or whatever, TikTok, and before you go to bed, you're looking at all of the disastrous things that have happened throughout that
Yeah.
day. And you just think about like how heavy that is to take all of that information in. And
To go
then next thing
sleep
you
on
know,
that.
you're going to sleep on that. That is, you
Wow.
know, so we have to be, like you said, very intentional and mindful in terms of what practices are we putting into our daily routines from the time we wake up first thing in the morning to before we go to bed. What is that nighttime routine? Can we ground ourselves in mindfulness? Maybe do a few yoga stretches, maybe like you said, prayer, meditation, maybe it's listening to music, but something that could be calming and relaxing and peaceful so that
Yeah.
you're not the top of thing on your mind is what happened, what news happened that day. So being protective about that, setting boundaries for yourself. That's the psychological realm of, resiliency. What are we telling ourselves? How are we communicating to ourselves? Are we
Yes.
critical, or are we encouraging ourselves? What language are we using with ourselves? So that's one realm. And the others are physical. So, what are we doing physically for our bodies? So
Mhm.
I love body movement. So clearly I'm a yoga instructor, but I love all things body movement. I take salsa dance classes. In the pandemic, I was jump roping. I joined a jump rope class on Zoom.
I love that. I love that.
Whatever invokes joy. I also, after I saw the Usher concert, I thought I could skate like Usher, so I bought some really pretty, cute skates. Now I cannot. I can barely get around one time in the loop, but it's
You
movement. It
you
brings
tried
joy.
it. Yes.
So, yeah. So, what are things that we can do to remind ourselves of that resiliency when it comes to our physical bodies, right?
Mhm.
Being in tune with our bodies. Yoga is a great way to do that. But if you're like, okay, yoga is not for me, or going to the gym is not for me, that's okay. Find whatever type of movement resonates with you. Think
Yeah,
about your childhood. What did you love to do as a child that sparked joy? And think about that
absolutely.
thing. Do that thing. For me, that's how I started jump roping. I was like, when I was a kid, I loved to jump rope. So during the pandemic, I bought a jump rope and I started jump roping every single day.
I love this. So these are all the ways that we can really cultivate joy and increase our resilience, from the jump
And
roping
increase
to the
resilience.
salsa. So when I was in Panama, I took a salsa dancing class and it was so fun. And so I was like, when I get back, I'm going to continue this because it felt so good and it is
Yes.
good movement for the body, and to the point where I salsa danced a blister on my foot.
Oh, I love it.
But it
I
was so
love
fun.
Yes.
So we're gonna have to tag team. You have to let me know when you're going to salsa. I want to join
I
you.
will let you know. I will let you know. There's such an amazing and beautiful salsa community here. And if you all are like, okay, salsa, that's too much. You got to count
Yes,
one,
too
two,
much.
one,
It's
two.
too much.
You can do Zumba. You can literally just throw on whatever your jam is as you're cooking, and
Yeah.
have a dance party in your kitchen. There are
There you
times
go. There you go.
as
These are just practical, like very
practical.
practical things that you can do at home, whether you want to spend money or not. There are so many things that you can do. For me, I've always been a nature girl, so I could be outside all day. So I love being outside, going for walks around the Duke Wall or in my neighborhood, or working from coffee shops because I'm an extrovert. So being in the house all day is not my jam. So I have to get out, and my home is my hiatus. So it's a place to retreat and be relaxing. But when I am at home, some of the things that I'm doing is I'm spraying my aromatherapy. I am using my aromatherapy diffuser. I have music and candles. I'm drinking out of Utopia is Joy cup. Like all these
Ooh, I love
things.
that.
Right? Yeah. So all these little things, I'm making sure that I have social connection. So when we are in high levels of stress, a lot of times we do want to retreat and we do want to withdraw. And sometimes we feel like nobody wants to be around me. I just feel like I'm in a crabby, mood. But really, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to, as Dr. Erikka said, write down. Just take a moment right now to write down at least 3 to 5 things that fill your cup, 3 to 5 things that bring you joy. And like she said, it maybe even go back to childhood. If you like to garden and you haven't been gardening in a while, you could even do indoor gardening now. Like there's so many things. If you love music and you realize, gosh, I have not, gone to a concert in the longest time, maybe curate your playlist on Spotify or what have you, and make it, you have your own jam session. If you haven't talked to your bestie in a while because they live in another state and life is busy, schedule a phone date, a Zoom call, and even better, I got one even better for you. Listen, ladies, a lot of times we get so much fuel from, and this is, everything is, we're going to come back to the men too, but we get a lot of fuel from connecting and being in community with one another. So hey, register for our upcoming retreats at utopialivingretreats.com. Bali is going to be a whole vibe of peace, restoration, and relaxation. In July, only 3 slots left. And Ghana is coming up in November, so you can go to utopialivingretreats.com, put it up here for you, and go ahead and fill out that pop up and let us know that you're interested, and you'll be added to our mailing list. I say sometimes we have to get a way to go up, right? And for our brothers, our men, you know, whether it is getting together to watch the game, whether it is having your guys over, whether it is, picking up that phone call and checking on, your friends, these are all things that we need to be doing. And then lastly, if you want to have classes that you can participate in, go to topiawellbeing.com. Our memberships, we also have individual memberships, so join us for class. It's very affordable. But let's go ahead and continue to, into some of the other areas of, we talked a little bit about the role of support systems kind of casually
Yeah,
by talking about
absolutely.
friend groups and things like that. But can
Yeah.
you really dive into that? Because I realized that I think with COVID, sometimes we underestimate. And when I listen to some of my younger people, I realize that I don't think that some of them had as many of the in-person social connections that we really need. And I think even for us that are kind of in the middle-aged range, sometimes we lose sight. So can you talk about how social support is so essential in enhancing our resilience?
Absolutely. And that's actually the third realm. So you are right on it. So, yes, the third realm of resilience is the social experiences that you have in a community that we can create. And, a lot of times when we're going through, again, we're talking about times of uncertainty, times of, where people are losing their jobs, people are losing grants, people don't know how they're going to live and survive. Sometimes our natural reaction and response to trauma and stress is to retreat and to hide. Right. And again, part of that may be because we have expectations of ourselves. We feel somehow that we're at fault. So we may live with guilt and shame and embarrassment.
Mhm.
And because of that, we go into hiding and we suffer in silence.
Mm.
But what we know is that is not helpful and it's not healthy. What's really important is to realize that we are not suffering alone. When you actually can pause and be open about your journey and your experience, even in my sharing my experience, when I do share that, so many people are like, oh my gosh, that happened to me. And you realize, oh, wow, I am not alone. There are many people here who are dealing with similar feelings of anxiety and self-doubt and just not sure about what those next steps are going to be. And it's important that we rely on each other and our communities to help us get through. So going back to my story, when I was going through that really tough time in my life, my community showed up and showed out. But
Mhm.
they would not be able to do that. And I will say, as a psychiatrist, I am usually the one who, I don't want to put my burdens on folks. It's like I'll keep it to myself. But I was like, y'all, I am struggling.
Yeah.
I'm struggling. And my friends showed up and showed out. And
Yes.
they helped to remind me that I'm resilient, right?
Yeah.
Because you forget, right? You forget what you've been through before.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
there to remind you because true friends have seen your journey. So they can remind you of all the things you've been able to overcome, and they remind you, you will get through this.
Yeah.
And not
Absolutely.
only will you get through this, I am here with you. I am
Mhm.
here to support you. I am
Mhm.
here to love on you. I'm here to listen to you. I'm
Mhm.
here for you to depend on me so that we can get through this thing together. We are not built as humans, we're not built to be in isolation.
No, we're not.
Even from a biblical standpoint,
Yeah.
Jesus was weeping and crying, and he said, I need y'all to stay here, stay up with me
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
uplift me and pray with me. They fell asleep.
Absolutely.
They fell asleep,
As you,
but,
yeah, it's so true.
we need community. We were created for community.
We were created for community. And like you said, we're not meant to be an island to ourselves. And I love what you said about your friends. Sometimes like they've really showed up for you and they remind you. And I was talking to a really good girlfriend just yesterday. And so she was just kind of sharing some things. And then she was like, I'm sorry for sharing all that. I'm like, if I did not share, like for me, I know that the way I'm wired
Yeah.
is to be able to communicate. And so if I did not share what was going on with me, my low seasons, my rough days with some of my friends, and I try to balance it out, right? Like I don't bombard people, and it shouldn't feel like you're bombarding, but like I know everybody's going through something. So it's
Exactly.
not like every little thing I'm sharing, but when I am in that tough space, I know that I have to share. And I just feel instantly better.
Yes.
Instantly better
Exactly.
just for sharing it. Like they may
Right.
not have the solution, but just for sharing it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And those friends that we really that are really in our corner, we're here for each other. It's not a one-way street. And I want to say check on your strong friends, the
Yeah.
ones that are usually here for everybody, they need a place too. And so let's not forget how to care for one another and just check in. Just call just to say, how are you doing? You were on my mind. I
Absolutely.
noticed of one of my friends, like I could just tell she didn't say anything. I could just tell that she just didn't seem like herself.
Mhm.
And I sent her a text and said, you didn't seem like yourself. And she said, how did you know? I said, because
Yeah.
we've only been friends for X amount of years.
Yeah.
She so appreciated that. So when we see something, say something, just check in.
Exactly.
Just say,
Checking
hey,
in.
yeah, you just seemed like you weren't quite yourself today. And I just wanted to see if you're okay, how you're feeling. I'm here if you need to talk. Just even that, right?
Absolutely. And recognizing too, in observing, whether that's observing ourselves or our friends, there may be a time when we need more than friendship. We may need more therapeutic support.
Mm,
We may need a professional
absolutely.
to
Thank
say,
you.
"Hey, I am struggling with these things and I am having a hard time, getting through or trying to figure out these next steps in the midst of this uncertainty."
Mhm.
So there may be times when we need more than a friend, where we may need a professional, a therapist, a clinically trained therapist, and there's nothing wrong with that. That
Yeah.
is not a sign of weakness. That doesn't mean that you're not strong. That just means that sometimes we need more. We need some more support.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a trained therapist, a skilled therapist can give you tools, specific tools to deal with whatever situation you're going through and to help you tap into your own individual resilience, right?
Yes.
To help you find and seek that. So, a lot of people think you go to therapists and they tell you what to do, so it's so funny when I get a patient, they're like, aren't you going to tell me what to do? And it's like, no, no, no. I'm going to help you find the things and the tools that work for you so that
Yeah.
you can step into your own resilience because you are able to get through this. It's just that you may need some skills, some tools to help you get there, but this is still your work. I'm just here to support you through that. So
Yeah.
sometimes we do need that. And then sometimes we need greater support, peer support groups. There are a lot of community support groups that are out there now. If you're, a single mom, for instance, or if you're, a single dad, and you're trying to figure out, how to support your teens during this time of uncertainty. There are a lot of groups, so you can always go online, whatever it is. If you're dealing with a lot of times when people are stressed, they may also develop disordered eating behaviors and patterns. So if you're noticing that, whether it's trending towards binge eating or purging or
Mhm.
not getting enough nutrients, you
Mhm.
can find communities of people who are dealing with disordered eating behaviors. You
Mhm.
could literally find a community for anything. If you're
Yeah.
like a plant poppy and you're like, okay, I want to get into gardening since Naya told me I need to get into gardening and get into the things I love to do. There's probably a gardening group for you, so whatever that may be, if it's substance use, that's something that happens too when we're dealing with stress. One way to
Absolutely.
escape and to
Yeah.
avoid is to engage in substances because it gives a temporary peace in a way.
Mhm.
Um, but sometimes that can get out of control, and we may need a support group to help us rein that in and get more control over it. So again, you're not alone. You don't have to suffer in silence. There are people willing and waiting to be support to you. It's just a matter of you being able to step out on faith, to share your story, to maybe be a little vulnerable, but people are there to support you when you need it. So tap into your community because we can't do this on our own.
No. And there's so much power in vulnerability. I appreciate you sharing your vulnerability, as a coach, as a wellness professional. I don't always have it together. Like I said, I have to kind of emote and share with my friends. I think therapy is something that we all need. Life is lifing. Life is difficult, right? And so, not something to be ashamed about, but it's like if you were to meet someone and they said, you know, I have never gone to the doctor.
Yes.
You're kind of like, really? Well, maybe we need to change that. And so there could be a lot going on in there. You want to be ahead of it, preventative, and
Yes.
you want to make sure you're doing well. I
Yes.
think when we think about our mental health, I think we're getting past that. I think we're getting past the stigma, but some people may still be, kind of caught up in that a little bit. Our
Mhm.
mental health guides everything that we do. Our mental health guides the way we speak, how we show up or not. it even guides if we do decide to work out or to pray or to apply for a job or to be able to show up and perform the job. How we show up in our relationships, what we eat, it guides everything we do. But I feel like it's one of the most vulnerable parts of our well-being because of what we're subject to in terms of things that we might see or hear or experience that we don't have control over. So at the end of the day, we all need to be very vigilant about our mental well-being. And I know you got to get ready to hop.
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
This was phenomenal. Thank you. Please share any closing final thoughts and how people can find you if they would like to find more about your services.
Absolutely. Well, one quick thing I do want to add is, we talked about some of the realms of resiliency. There was one more I wanted to share, and that's the
Yes,
spiritual
yes. And
realm.
I'm going to stay on a little longer. So if
Okay,
you
yes,
can stay on a
okay.
little longer, I can stay
Yeah,
on a little longer.
but I wanted to share the spiritual realm because I think that is also really important for us to tap
Um,
into whatever we believe in, faith wise, spiritually. That helps also to ground us and helps us to be resilient. And if
yes,
there are things that speak to you, whether that's scripture or prayer or being in the faith community
mhm,
of like minded people, that can also really help to build our sense of resiliency and to help us connect with something that is even greater than ourselves. I think sometimes we can also get very caught up into our day to day living, and it's like, okay, I have to do this, I have to go to work, I have to be there for my kids, I'm caretaking, I'm all of the busy things that we have to do. And sometimes we may overlook or just not take the time to think about our greater purpose
mhm.
and the meaning of the things that we do, the basically our why.
Yes, right.
And I think when we could connect to that spiritual side of ourselves, it helps to remind us of the why, right? It helps to remind us of our purpose. And that also helps to bring clarity too, right? Because then we can really depend on our faith and our hope, our peace and joy, all those things can actually come from within. That's an eternal state of being. It's not a feeling per se, but
Right.
it's an eternal state of being. We can be in an eternal state of peace in the greatest chaos, right? We can
Oh,
experience joy even in the pain and the sadness. Right, so
absolutely.
there's a duality there that while we can have these heavy emotions, and we're not saying to just, okay, experience joy and ignore all the things that are happening in our society today. We're just saying there's a both and. We
Yeah,
can see the things that are happening, but we're not shaken by that,
right.
right? Because we know at the end of the day where our source of power comes from,
Mhm.
and that is what helps us to be resilient in these uncertain times. So I wanted to finish with that.
That is so good. And I'm so glad that you finished with that. And it is so important. That is what drives me as a woman of faith. That's what grounds me. That's how I start every single day before I look at a text or an email, is grounding myself in the word with scripture. And so, like you said, whatever your belief system is, study shows, science shows that
Yeah.
when you have a faith practice and you have a spiritual practice in a spiritual community, your immune health is better, your
Yeah.
mental health is better, your overall well-being is better, you're able to even fight off colds better, and sickness better. And so it really becomes the anchoring source to navigate these challenging times. And I'm so grateful for my faith and my spiritual practice. So I'm so glad that you did end with that. And Dr. Erikka, I want to be mindful of your time and that may have
Mm.
clients. I'm going to share 5 ways that we can continue to increase and cultivate joy and resilience. If Dr. Erikka, if you want to share where people can follow you or find you or go to your website,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, yes. So you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. I know we're on LinkedIn now. On Instagram, it's Dr. Erikka, Erikka. And again, we just launched joy.embodied. So it's at joy.embodied on Instagram. So stay tuned for that. And if you're in need of services, of psychiatric services, I'm the co-founder and co-owner of Catalyst Therapeutic Services here in Durham. And I do have licenses in North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, New York, a couple of other states.
That's
That's
awesome.
www.catalystnc.com.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. This was a joy. It's always a joy.
As always, it's so good. Thank you so much for having me and for just creating this platform. It's so amazing. It's so necessary. So thank you for all that you're doing to contribute to health and well-being in our communities.
Yes.
Thank you, Naya.
Thank you, Dr. Erikka. So we're going to stay on. You have a beautiful and utopia living day, but we're going to close out you
Okay.
all for the rest of us that are still here with a few more practical ways to cultivate that joy and resilience before we conclude in a mindful moment, because mindfulness is something you can practice at home, at work, anytime, anywhere, and it is a wonderful resilience strategy. So 5 ways that we can increase resilience and cultivate joy include practicing gratitude. So that's reflecting on what you're thankful for. That definitely is a mood booster. I just say it's a powerful mindset shifter, and it has never taken me down the wrong path. It has always made whatever I've been going through better. So it may not solve for all things, but it's a powerful mindset shifter, which is once again why we have our Utopia 30 days, 30 Days to Utopia Living Journal, which can be found on Amazon. I'll make sure there's a link to find all things Utopia before we conclude. Also, those social connections, foster those social connections. So I want to invite you, if you don't have a social connection coming up, hey there, Oche. So good to see you. I want you to schedule something. Reach out. Send a text today. Text or call and reach out to your folks, your crew, your tribe, your family, and schedule a brunch, a dinner, a coffee, a tea. Make sure that you're connected, and even look on things like Eventbrite or LinkedIn or Facebook groups and look at other ways that you can get more engaged and create and find social community that works for you and your lifestyle. Setting realistic goals. Sometimes we have to recalibrate and readjust. You know, what we may have been able to do last year with all the things going on and swirling around us. And for those that are already impacted by some of the cuts that have been happening, maybe what you were able to do before, you're not able to do at the same speed and clip, and that is okay. Give yourself grace. So, setting realistic but smart goals. Make sure that they're specific, measurable, attainable. Attainable is key, and also realistic and timelined. Okay, so that's going to help you as well in prioritizing your self care. So, whether it is a yoga class, whether it is salsa dancing, whether it is making sure you're eating healthy fruits and veggies, and along with the other things, of making sure you're nourishing your body, nourishing your spiritual life, your hobbies, enjoying nature. There's so many ways to cultivate your self-care, soaking in the tub, your little bubble baths, whatever it is. Make sure that you're doing that and allowing yourself to create those boundaries that are needed and fueling your emotional batteries. And then lastly, engage in mindfulness. Some people think mindfulness is woo woo, but I want to say mindfulness is a need to have, especially for executives, especially for busy professionals. And I think that's who we have a lot of on this call. Harvard Business Review has not only done a study, but they have written a whole book, and it's called Mindfulness. And it talks about how being mindful, being fully present, allows us to be responsive versus reactionary. I don't know about y'all, but I know that I have at times done and said things out of reaction, out of emotion, and wished that I could have pulled that thing back. Well, that comes out of being in a knee jerk reaction state, and stress will push us there. But mindfulness is the muscle of making ourselves more self aware, increasing our emotional intelligence, and just taking a cleansing breath. So, we're going to do a little mindfulness exercise so you can see how simple it is. It can anchor you in calm, even in spaces of being spaces of chaos, and allow you to show up more strategically, more thoughtfully, and more present. So, who wouldn't want that, right? Right? So, why don't we go ahead and just take 1 minute to take a moment to take a few cleansing breaths. So I'm going to invite you to first just kind of make sure that your posture is aligned so oxygen can flow, because life is in the breath. Oxygen can flow through your organs, your muscles, your brain, your vessels, all of that, and counteract what happens when we get stressed. A lot of times is that we go into shallow breathing. We're not barely breathing. And then we end up with headaches and migraines. So life is in the breath. So I'm going to invite you to place your feet firmly on the ground. I'm going to invite you to also take a moment and make sure your shoulders are just kind of relaxed. You can even lean back into your chair. You can keep your eyes open, or you can close them, or you can just simply lower your gaze, whichever is most comfortable for you. Okay? And placing one hand on your heart, one hand on your abdomen. I'm going to invite you to just take in a cleansing and calming breath, breathing in peace, joy, and harmony. Slowly exhaling, releasing any stress, tension, or anxiety. Again, I want you to breathe in like you're smelling the roses. Exhale like you're blowing out a candle. On your next breath, I'm going to invite you to breathe in again, peace, joy, and abundance. Exhaling twice as long, anything that is not serving us well. Maybe thoughts of comparison, critique, or lack. Continue to take in those cleansing breaths. And now I want you to just breathe in thoughts of gratitude, what you're thankful for, your health, your home, your life, the community, friends and family that you do have, the health that you do have. Exhaling once again, all that does not serve us. Releasing any tension, any sickness, any feelings of despair, anxiety, just breathing that out. And lastly, I want you to continue to take another breath and remind yourself of how strong you are, how resilient you are, the things you have already overcome, and the things that bring you joy. Wonderful. So whether it's 1 minute or 30 minutes, you can take these mindful moments everywhere you go. You can take 3 cleansing breaths before you get on that meeting, that phone call, and you can anchor yourself in the what is, that you are strong, that you are able, that you are resilient. You can think about what is your desired outcome of that conversation, of that meeting, and meditate on the desired outcome, that it will be fruitful. It will be a fruitful conversation, that it will be a fruitful meeting. It will result in an amazing, mutually beneficial partnership, that the tense conversation will end in a spirit of understanding, whatever that thing is. You can pause, take 3 cleansing breaths, and meditate on the desired outcome. That is even a part of being mindful and practicing mindfulness. So as we get ready to close, please feel free to put any of your questions, any of your ahas, any of your takeaways in the chat. And I want to share with you all a few things. If you are interested in, like I shared earlier, our retreats are all things Utopia, go ahead and click my link tree there. If you are interested in scheduling your workplace wellness demo and discovery call for Topia, our platform that offers live and over 800 on-demand wellness classes to really elevate employee health, happiness, and performance, I've provided a link there. And as we get ready to close, and as we've talked about resilience and joy and all the things, I want to share one of my favorite quotes. And this is a quote by Maya Angelou. And it says, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." So that caterpillar had to be resilient That caterpillar had to be steadfast and had to continue to pursue its purpose. And now we see the beauty of the butterfly. So think about the beauty of your life and how it relates to your caterpillar moments, that you continue to stay the course, you continue to pursue your purpose. And with that, thank you all for joining. Let's stay connected and make it a utopia living day. See you soon.